Hello, Nathe. I'm so happy to be back talking with you. It's been a little while, but I really enjoyed our last collaboration and the one before that as well. And we were talking a little bit before getting started about our own journeys, through the tarot, through astrology, and looking for all the commonalities, which I think is really fascinating because, even though they appear to be completely different worlds, there are a lot of correspondences that go across. I know from astrology, for example, uh, even if I don't assign actual planets or signs to the cards, which there are traditionally, the some of the occult organizations in the 20th century would assign specific signs, planets, etc. But even without that, the cards have a feeling of planetary and sign energy.
hmm
For example, the magician card, which is the number one card, suggest because you think, well, it's a magician. He's got a wand. Well, it's the wand of oneness, of keeping the mind on a point,
Yes.
and which then allows you to do magic. If you just say, well, he's got a wand, then it gives him magical power. You should be asking, what is the magical power? And traditionally, the magician is associated with Mercury, which is actually the planet of mind, right? So he's doing
hmm
mind power to produce energy. And so that's an
Yes.
example where the two worlds, in a sense, either merge or come close to it. But in any case, today we were going to talk about political people. The last time we talked about the clown car of the GOP. It's remarkable, by the way, as a quick aside. To me, it's dangerous, but it's because if you have incompetent people doing high level jobs, it's normal to be a little scared about what they might do, the mistakes they may make. But on the other hand, it's encouraging in the sense that they're less likely to succeed as well because they're not particularly smart. And I mean pretty much all of them. And if someone leaves, it's to replace them with someone worse. That seems to be the pattern. But now we're going to talk about the Democratic people that candidates for potential presidency, as well as the next major election, which is in 2026. There are elections before that, but the two big elections are going to be the midterms in November of 26 and the election in 2028. And so there are a number of people. I thought maybe we could start, though, if it's okay with you, with the Kamala Harris, who was unable to win the presidency. And there are some rumors or a line of thinking, let's call it that, out there, that she may be returning to the presidency or that something very positive may happen for her. And I noticed in those projections that people were pointing to around this time or something like the summer. I think maybe one or two people pointed to later in the year, but the bulk of the predictions were for the middle of the year. What's your sense of that uh, with Kamala Harris?
hmm First of all, Android, thanks for having
Oh,
me, and
oh,
it's always
pleasure.
a pleasure to be with you on your channel and on mine. And when it comes to Harris, I actually have read a couple times on where she's at, what she's been doing. Uh, what I saw the most was that she is thinking of her future. I think she has recovered from this very difficult challenge and the election and not being able to be in the White House. But I feel like she's resurfacing now, wondering what to do with her life and her um, values and what she wants to do politically. Um, and I was seeing particularly like she's not sure of what role or election to pick up next. I feel like she's still evaluating that. However, I've always been seeing a lot of work with donors to get money. And I feel like she's realizing that no matter what she does, she's going to need money and support and people backing her up. And so I felt like at this particular moment, in the next few months, I saw her trying to build connection with donors just to build some sort of treasure chest that she can use when the right time comes.
Hmm. Well, that's interesting. From the astrology, the one thing that is very strong right now is the Jupiter cycle, which is usually the best from the vantage point of something very positive happening. And so, from that vantage point, if you are expecting something dramatic where this person emerges from the background and, explodes in some magical way, this is the month of May of
Okay.
2025, because Jupiter is crossing her ascendant right now. Now, where it fits with what you say, though, which is very interesting, is that her natal Jupiter is in the 12th house and it's in Taurus, which is a money sign. And so this could easily be not
Ah,
an explosion into anything, but just working the background, 12th house, to connect with money and
right.
to and if so, we may see news of some kind reporting on such a thing, that she's making headway with donors, or that she's finding a lane that she may want to connect with. And I would say, for the people that expect some really unusual something or other, especially related to the last election, I would say we're there as far as that, because
Yeah.
she has 24 degrees rising Gemini. By the way, it's another curious thing that the all the politicians, famous people from California, you can get accurate birth times because they're public, right? So, and she's a
Okay.
California birth, so
Well,
on. So it's known, and Jupiter's crossing through there, uh, you know, like sometime a bit later this month, because then it'll switch signs in June and go into Cancer. So that's my read on her. You know,
um, I mean, I can pull some cards real quick just to see,
sure.
what I'm getting. I'm not using the tarot this time. I'm just gonna use my Lenormand cards because I just want to look at symbology around her. And so I ask, what Kamala Harris, what would be a good question? Like what she's working on at the moment? What is she focusing on?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So just because I work with symbols here. So this is her. This is the woman in my deck. Um, and then we have the tower. So the tower generally talks about government, right? This is government. This is so she is looking at some sort of a role, what her role she wants to take in government. Um, the moon suggests it's very like the moon in the tarot. The moon suggests what she's doing in the background. So there's a lot we don't know because it's a lot of background. And then I have the child. The child talks about something new. It's a new beginning. So based on the cards, a little bit like what I was saying earlier, she is focused on A, finding out what kind of role she wants to take in government that she's going to go for. Two, working in the background.
Mm, okay.
Yeah,
That's very
yeah,
interesting. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, that actually, to me, it makes the most sense when I combine my intuition about it and the patterns in her chart together with just the way the American system works. It's,
yeah,
a lot of the American system, despite the current attempts to upend it by Trump and his cronies, there are a lot of solid, systemic patterns that the politicians respect, because you have to. So elections happen on a certain day. You need to go through certain procedures, primaries, whatever. You don't decide, I'll do it in a different way without getting a lot of resistance, right? So
hmm
that's the logic. Yeah.
And I added a card from the tarot just for an energy perspective, the Emperor.
Hmm.
So very clearly, she's focused on the role she wants in government. She wants to lead. She wants an important role in politics. Um, and she's figuring out what is it? Is it a governorship? Is it running for another presidency? What is it? But she seems to clearly want to return into running for something high level.
Hmm. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Yes. Yeah. I mean, she's, when I think of if you go as far as 2028, uh, the, the one thing that would automatically qualify her at minimum as a strong candidate is that she's a Libra sun sign, and Jupiter will be in Libra in 2028. So
Oh.
that's an automatic. It's not a guarantee because, as you'll see when we do some of the other people, what ends up happening is what can make it really hard is you start to find that more than one person is getting the benefit of
Oh,
something.
the
In which
benefit.
case, yeah. So then, but is automatically a candidate from being a Libra because Jupiter being in Libra, I mean, it works that way. It's that simple. So yeah. So
Okay.
okay. So who do we go to next? What would be your read on, uh, let's say the the House leader, Hakeem Jeffries? What kind of what's your sense if you've already done it or you could do it now?
I will do it now because I haven't looked. So do you wanna me to do it right now and then you tell me what you see this time, or we
Sure,
can
sure.
do?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Let's
Okay.
do that. Yeah. So he's
So
the
let's
leader
pull some cards. Yep.
of the
Hakeem
Democratic.
Jeffries
Yes,
is the current. Basically, he has Nancy Pelosi's old,
correct.
well, minority though, minority
Minority
leader.
leader. Yes,
Yes. Yes.
yes. With
All
aspirations to
right.
be majority leader. For example, if the in 2026, if the House were to change, then he would be the majority leader, almost certainly. Because I mean, they could change, but that's unusual.
So this is interesting. This is him. So I use key card. So this is a man, right? It represents him. Um, we get the fish. The fish to me is someone who's very independent. And so to me, that feels like it's a bit surprising because you would expect someone in that role to think more from a group perspective, but he is looking a little bit at his own individual path at the moment. What's next for him? So there's a bit of a, I would say, disconnect here where he is very focused on his own destiny, and I see some success for him. The bouquet of flowers is when you get some success. And so from this first reading, I would say that is not very involved at the moment when it comes to the Democratic Party and the House, where of course he is working in the House and working, but his mind is focused on what could he do himself.
Hmm.
And so it looks like there's future success for him. So he is trying to work. His name is trying to um work through ways of making himself more of a leader and grow his own ability to lead more. But it's an interesting aspect, like I said, because it's very focused on almost preparing his own personal future as opposed to dealing with the now, which I think is true. Like we don't see a lot of group or activities. So I feel like his mind is very much focused on his own future. And then I would put a card for him from the tarot, Hakeem Jeffries, the Four Swords. So this is an interesting card because the Four Swords, you see like this person in the waiting, and the swords are like on the side of the truck here. In other words, he's not fighting, is not, it is almost in a wait and see position, preparing himself for the future.
Hmm.
And I think that matches what we see right now. We don't see him going strong or going, it's almost like he's a bit passive.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. It's true that the entire Democratic Party is at the moment they feel like behind the eight ball. They feel suppressed, and they're still recovering from the loss of the election. But then, as the next election approaches, typically voters return to their tribes. It's the common standard. And thing with his chart, he's the one person in this group that we're doing today where I only have the birthday, but I don't have the birth
Ah,
time. And even with that, though, it's fairly easy to see why in the last election he was unable to become the majority leader because he has several Virgo planets and two of them were in the way of the Saturn. So it just wasn't a great moment, to have something turn out in a more positive way. Where I'm encouraged is that he is a Leo, Sun conjunct Mars in Leo, and Leo energy next year
okay.
benefits from Saturn in a fire sign, Aries, and Jupiter will be in Leo. And that's good. That's Jupiter somewhere can be really helpful. Now, what I don't know is how the chart lines up in terms of what the houses are and so forth. So there's an X factor that is hard to pin down. But I would say I am at least reasonably confident, that he's got a shot, a very good shot. And,
Yes.
and
Well, I see. Yes, it shows what I see right now. It's almost like he knows that right now is not so much his time, and I feel like he's preparing himself. And I do see success in the future, but is I f the criticism aside from psychic reading is I wish he would be a bit more punchy, a bit more active, and we haven't seen that much of him. And so this is interesting because the cards also show that the passive energies, and it's almost like I get intuitively the sense like he knows like this is not quite his time, and he's trying to prepare when it will really, really, really matters. And maybe he is coming from a point of view that um, what battles do you want to pick? What I think this is a big question. Do you fight every time, or do you pick certain battles, or do you prepare yourself to have more of an impact later? I think those dynamics are very much what's going on with him at the moment.
right, right, right. Yeah, actually, the that's the classic retreat card, meditation
Mm,
card, the Four of Swords. So yeah,
yes,
it fits really, really well. See, they assign that traditional assignment is Jupiter and Libra, which actually Jupiter and Libra to me, that's an odd one there where I think, that's a strange place to put it. Jupiter and Libra is a much more relational card where there's a partnership, there's give and take, and yet to me the Four of Swords implies the very opposite.
retreat,
Retreat. Yeah.
which
So
you wouldn't expect for even from a minority leader. There's a disconnect here.
there is, but I think it's early. It's just too early, and
Yeah,
because if he were pushing it, then people would say, "Oh, look, he's pointing to himself all the time, and this party just lost. Why is he? What can he do? He has no power anyway." I mean, I think it's a smart move. I would be wait in the background if I were him too, probably. Yeah,
it also maybe gives the sense like he's working in the background more than in the foreground, but that doesn't mean like he's not working.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, at least we'll say that
Yep,
that one
yep.
there's a mild. Uh,
Well, there's potential.
there's
There's clearly
potential.
potential.
There's
Yes.
potential. Okay. So then, while we're on that line, the other leader, unless it changes, and my feeling is it won't change. Maybe you can look
Yep.
to the tarot for Chuck Schumer because he is a lot older than Jeffries, and because of the failure in 2024, there are a number of people who wish he would leave, and also he hasn't been particularly effective. There have been comments like, "This guy used to be a good communicator, and now suddenly he's tongue-tied and he can't seem to say what he means, and so forth." But I think it's unlikely that he would be changed that he would leave his job before the next election in 2026 as
Oh,
the
before the election, yeah.
because
No.
he's the Senate minority leader at the moment.
So what I see with him, um, that he has is that he has this is the garden. The garden talks about relationships with people. You know, you meet people in the garden, etc., etc. And then in the tarot, I have the lovers, which is also a card of relationships. And
Mm,
so this is someone who's particularly gifted to work through his relationships to get what he wants. And so that would suggest to me that he has, an intention to stay until the next election, and he's going to work through his relationship to stay.
mm.
Actually, building consensus around him, and there's clearly some opposition, but his relationship is what keep him there.
Keeps him
Yeah.
there. Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. This is one where when I was pondering the 24 election, it was my first big alarm from the summer because I was looking at his chart and I was thinking, this isn't good. This isn't good. I was comparing it to 2020 when he won. It was very close because it was 50
Yeah.
50, all of that. But they were 2 seats short and they were able to regain the Senate because Trump went out of his way to complain about cheating. So then less people voted. It was wonderful. And then the Democrats won. So then Schumer becomes the leader. And at the time, you could just see that there was a cluster of planets on his ascendant. I mean, it had this feeling of empowerment. But in 2024, he's a Sagittarius. There were squares. There were also some progressions. I just didn't like the scene at all. It looked to me like a negative thing. And so, sure enough, he lost the Senate majority.
Yeah.
But this is another one. You see, the other guy on the house side is a fire sign. So is he. He's a Sagittarius with Venus in Sagittarius, Mercury in Sagittarius. So he benefits from Saturn and Aries and Jupiter and Leo because those are supportive energies to the fire signs. So this is another person with a possibility. I don't know if is that. Can you say in black and white whether or not okay, the Democrats regain the Senate or they don't regain the Senate? Is that a possible question or is that too?
Actually, I was actually thinking about it. I have been very giving clear indications for the House,
Uh-huh.
but the Senate, I'm not putting a prediction out there because I don't see clearly just now.
But you do see the House though.
Yes,
And what do you see?
a Democrat.
Oh, okay. Well then
Yes.
that can only be good for Hakeem Jeffries, I assume.
Well, yeah, for him, I think this is what leads him to be the majority leader. I feel pretty strong about the House, but I'm running into like psychic roadblock to read the Senate. I don't know why, but right now it feels too early.
Yeah, which it can be. I mean,
Yes, yes.
I experience that in astrology frequently where I can see ahead many times big patterns way in the future, but a lot of what I tune in is as I get more visibility based on, like, for example, in February, I was being asked constantly, what about Musk? What about Musk? And I was seeing this really good energy in the summer, but you project into that and okay, well now he's in Doge, he's now in the summer, he's gonna be really popular. Well, the main reason he's gonna be popular is because he's leaving. So now
Yeah,
he's
I
experiencing that
know.
the Jupiter energy by not being as tied to the government.
I
But
know, that's
you
true.
can only experience, you have to see it move along and then get a little more visibility to
Exactly.
tie it to the planets. Yeah.
The Senate, I'll tell you, the Senate, the reason that I feel like there's like a couple of races that feel very messy, neck and neck and messy.
Mm. Which they
And
can be, by
so,
the way. They can be. The
yes.
Senate is
And so I think, because in the Senate, I mean, it's a few seats that will make the difference. It's hard to tell right now. It's just too far out, I feel.
yeah, I mean Schumer is he will be he is now 75 and I'm wondering about his aging because his chart is very good going into the 28 cycle, but by then he would be 78. And what I notice is that a person in their late 70s, they're either like Bernie, who is a very lively, he's 80 something now, but he, to me, mentally
Yes.
seems like a
Totally
someone
there.
10
Yes.
years younger. But a lot of people, Trump included, they get to that. And this happened to Biden too. Biden at 78 was no longer, even though he won the election in 2020, he was already struggling. At 74, he was solid, very solid. He would easily have defeated Trump because his communication powers were really strong. In 2020, he won mostly because people had seen Trump mishandle COVID, and so he gave him an edge. And then there was a pretty sharp decline. Now I'm wondering how it'll go for Schumer. My feeling is he'll
Mm,
probably age better. I don't know. We'll see. But I think he might be okay. Anyway, I don't know. What I know is that the planets in 28 are very good for him. But whether or not he'll be able to
that's
take
good.
advantage of them,
Yes.
you know.
Thought in 28, but what about 26?
Oh no, 26 good too because 26
Okay.
is Saturn is in Aries and um, Jupiter is in Leo, which means his fire energy gets great support. And whenever your core energy is getting support, your odds improve.
Okay. Okay. But that's good. Yes.
Because the other thing too is you have to kind of ask yourself, okay, so if you're projecting into these people's mind and bodies, and they can't possibly be comfortable with what they're seeing right now. No one is comfortable. This is like an outrageous, it's like we're watching the inmates of a prison. They took over the prison, and we're all waiting. We're kind of going, please, please, where's the warden? So if they don't make some gain to restore power to the Democratic side, then we're looking at potentially the whole 4 years with this this constant thing. So to if you think, well, someone's chart indicates they're going to be feeling a little better, then hopefully it's
We'll
because
take
of that.
that. Yes. And I feel like the house feels strong to me. So even if we don't get the Senate, the house will be a big, even if it's just the house, and hopefully it's more than that, but it will be a big block to Trump. So
Yes,
that I think is something to really look forward to. I know it feels we for people like a long time, and I know it is a long time, but that's the next big election, so we have to consider that. Yes.
correct, correct. All right, well, let's go to the next one. Let's see. How about um, AOC? AOC, that's another California chart. So no, it's not. Pardon me.
No, New York.
She was born in the Bronx, but
Yep.
her time is known. So she's a Libra with the moon in Aries. So it's not quite an exact full moon, but it's full moon energy, and then Sagittarius rising. So primarily fire air, but she has some earth too to give her practicality. So it's a pretty good blend. And I'll say a few things about her, and you can do the cards. The
Yep.
thing about her is that this is an example of, what I said earlier. Okay, so Kamala Harris is a Libra. And in fact, Kamala Harris is like AOC, Sun in Libra, Moon in Aries. They're both full moon people, full moon women. And so the Jupiter cycle is affecting both of them in a similar way because they're both the same sun sign. And so that's automatically a competitor, that is
Yes.
equally strong at the time, in 2028. And
Well, just pulling the cards here for her and kind of where she's at and where she's going. A couple of energies. One is she's trying to establish herself. She's still working on establish her brand, establish making sure people know her. I know that she's been doing some rallies around the country. The cards indicate that she's actually gonna travel a lot.
mm,
And that's an interesting indication where I feel like she is the big shift with her is she's not keeping just with the New York, but actually state and her work in the house. But also, I see her going around the country, meeting people, and so that feels like a strategy to me to work. There would be really two options for people to do something like this, either to um, develop her brand or work for the Democratic Party, or prepare herself for a presidency or vice presidency to get her word out there.
Mm,
So I also feel that she is in the moment where she's ready to take some risks. She
mm,
feels like she has to take some risks. So it all indicates that she has a little bit of a push to get out there, to get outside the comfort zone, and to push herself more within the United States. So this is an interesting dynamic.
mm, mm. Very good. Yeah, I'll be tracking her in so especially in the spring of next year, there's a point there where she gets a strong Saturn challenge. Like one of the things I'll do is if someone is getting a Saturn visit, the best possible result is often that you don't hear anything about them and they're just doing work. And you might hear
In the
something,
background.
but right. But what you don't want to see is a scandal or
No,
like someone finds something that, an example of that is, the actor John Hamm. He had a hazing incident when he was a young boy, like 19 years old. And then it first resurfaced in 2015 when Saturn was squaring him, and now it's come up again because Saturn or it was conjoining or squaring. It was Saturn pressure. So then society says, "Hey, you did this, and that's no, 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 you shouldn't be doing that." And so he has to say, "Well, I was a young kid, and I'm sorry," and all that stuff, right? So I'm curious what'll happen with AOC because she does have she has a very strong Saturn, which makes her a very hard worker, which is great. But Saturn has a way of discovering your faults, and uh, putting pressure on you. So I'll be watching carefully. But one thing that is good is around the election, I think it's somewhat of a factor, but not as challenging as earlier in the year in 2026 for her.
it is also, I mean, something that's also interesting is within the Democratic Party, she represents more of the more progressive um, side. And I was like wondering, like, I mean, I know that we're looking at different people within the Democratic Party, but there's clearly people that are more middle ground, or than people that are more. And this, I feel tension of the identity of the Democrat Party. And so, have you thought of like where this is more leaning to, like where the strategy is going to be?
My feeling is that it would be nice to get a little more visibility, obviously, because politics, if you make a statement years ahead and the situation can change enough that it tilts the playing field. But I still think that we have not yet reached in the country for electability. You are usually are going to do better if you're closer to the center. That's my sense of it. I think that the left, more leftward energies, they are necessary, they're important, and they can become a problem if you're running for the top job, let's say. Not There are other angles that could be okay, but if you're asking me, do I think that, for example, if you're saying, particularly in the era that we're in, and you're saying, okay, look, we're in the era of Trumpism, and the result will be that they'll elect someone very progressive. My feeling is that the next person is more likely to be maybe not dead center, but closer to the center than AOC is, unless she herself, because we don't know, she may evolve and,
Hmm.
become a little
I
less.
I hear what you're saying, but obviously Trump won not being quite in the center.
No, well, Trump is.
No, so that's the least we can say, right? So it just, it comes with very aggressive idea. Is actually way to the far right, right? And so let's build a wall. Let's do, like one crazy idea after another,
Mhm.
and yet it still managed to be elected. So I kind of hear what you say, but I also feel that voters are tired of hearing what they would consider of middle of the road wishy-washy point of views, because the people want change, right? That I think it's a fair thing.
It's
And so
true.
can middle of the road bring change? And
It's
that's why
true.
also you get people like Bernie Sanders who can attract crowd because in his own way, he brings a sets of policies that are actually significant change. And so I I I don't dispute what you say. It's just like I'm a bit conflicted myself when I look at this particular issue of should this be more about strong point of views versus of people tired of politicians that they don't want to say really what they fully think because they're afraid of losing votes. You see what I mean?
Yeah, no, very true. Yeah, I don't dispute. My focus on the center had more to do with the fact that Trump is generating by all by himself a pretty intense economic crisis, and that
Hmm.
is going to be probably a big topic around what does the country do to manage its finances. And the thing with AOC and Bernie is they are correctly identifying the oligarchic leanings, and there's a need to have greater equitability. But then they also
Yes.
throw in all kinds of things that require a lot of spending, which may not be possible right away. And so it makes it hard for them to run coherently, and uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
you may
Hmm.
have to say, look, I'm on the left, but we can't do Medicare for all right now. For example, there may not be enough money or whatever it is. So, but
Yes,
anyways, I
yes.
mean, look, bottom line, I'll agree with you on one thing. She's got the Jupiter in her sign in 2028. So I'm going to be watching. And for example, the 2 years before that, that Jupiter is getting more and more elevated as it's going toward her sun. So if her profile is really gaining and it appears like there's a strong tilt that way, yeah, she's a contender for sure. Just
Hmm.
because the
Okay.
Jupiter on the
Yep.
sun alone is enough, to do it. Yeah. So that's the
I
bottom.
yep.
Yeah. All right. So let's see. So what I've got here, I've got two more, and one of them is let's do this one first. He's the current governor of Illinois. He is actually one of the so-called good billionaires, and that he's very wealthy, but he's more like in the George Soros camp. He sees his vision of the world. I assume, he's way more democratic, and he's very vocal against Trumpism. And he's currently, as I say, running. He's the governor of Illinois, and could possibly be another presidential
Okay.
candidate uh, based on that.
So I have never read. It's going to be my first time reading. What's his name?
What's his which?
His name is his
Oh, his
name.
name is JB, and I don't know what JB stands for, so I'd have to look it up. But
That's fine.
JB Pritzker is his.
Okay. Okay. Let's have a look. He's actually coming pretty strong in my cards. What I feel is that. Let me check on that.
J. Robert Pritzker. That's his name.
Sure. Okay. I feel like. Okay. I felt like he has one thing that the card says that he has done a lot of work. So I would assume like the governorship is
Mhm.
something that gives him an experience, the ability to build a program, the ability to have something to show. Um, and then he's getting really good cards. I would just show like the sun that I got here.
Mhm.
And then when I look in the tarot, I got the star. So obviously this is showing like a very, very good potential to attract.
Mhm.
And someone who is, I would say that this is someone who's seems to have both the the experience hands-on, but also the strategic view and the ability to set a vision.
Mhm.
So that's a very good profile.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is very good. It's very good. I don't know from the vantage point of winning the presidency. This to me looks less likely. Um,
Hmm.
there are a couple of positive things, but I wouldn't put him in the same potential camp as AOC and Kamala Harris. So
Less of a contender
less,
for
yeah,
the
less.
future.
It just feels the way the chart is lined up, it has less of that, big opportunity, big something happening at a time like that. Has less of that pattern, yeah.
It feels like he could have from the energy I get, like a strong role in a cabinet, for example.
Good
Um,
point. That's a
yeah,
good point.
yes, yes.
Yeah, actually, that's a
And
really good point.
yeah,
Yeah,
he
because
seems to. Yeah, go ahead.
well, no, really quickly, because you see, he's got, okay, so he's a Capricorn, very late Capricorn, but several Sun, Moon, Venus, Sun, Venus, Mercury in Capricorn, and then he has four planets in Virgo, so very earthy energy, very practical
Yes.
earthy energy. But and then Jupiter in Taurus, so this guy is an Earth being, very earthy. But in 2020, if something positive happens, so that there's a Democratic administration in 2028, and he gets a cabinet position, Saturn would be in Taurus, which is his 12th, which is a house behind the scenes. Like he's not, yeah, he's not in the foreground, but he's part of the administration in a big way because Taurus does line up well with all those Earth planets. It's very good, but it's a hidden house. It's a house where you do administrative work and you're not as,
Ah,
so it fits really well.
I
I mean,
see.
in the cabinet, you're visible, but you're not really as visible as the
No,
president, vice
it's
president.
funny. I mean, just for the sake of it, maybe we'll watch this video in 3 years. I was getting, I was getting transportation, so I'm just putting it out there.
Well, the transportation angle, okay, that's interesting. In this chart, his son, his Capricorn sun, rules the transportation house. That's the first
Mm,
connection. And his ascendant is Gemini, which is the sign of transportation. So these are very important points in a chart that point you that way. Sometimes people think when astrologers say, what do you mean? Come on, how can you say the house of transportation? All I would say to you is, of course, you'd have to be an astrologer to understand this, but study the charts of, for instance, Princess Diana, who had a terrible car accident because it's
yes.
a place of cars and transportation, and you see it there. It's really graphic.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's why astrologers
Yep.
assign these things. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Yep. Interesting. I was getting energies of transportation. So, okay.
Interesting. Maybe
Interesting.
you would get Pete Buttigieg's ex job, right? I get it. Okay.
If it happens in 3 years, we have to go back to this video and
Yes.
mention that we saw it.
Mentioned that we saw it. Exactly. Exactly. All right. So the last person is someone that is widely considered to be a
Hmm.
definite candidate. And I'm curious what you see as the current
Okay.
governor of California, Gavin
On yeah,
Newsom.
Newsom.
Yeah, and he is the governor for 2 more years. Then he has to leave the post because by law he can't run anymore. And but he's considered a strong candidate.
All right. I'm getting very mixed energies here, and maybe you'll be able to tell me if that matches some of what you see in astrology. I see a lot of abilities. I see a lot of drive and ambition. I feel like this is something that he would definitely want to do and in terms of running, but I do see challenges as well. I feel like there's some problems that are coming his way that are a little bit like, those type of problems you don't see you don't expect and they kind of come at you. And then I was a bit concerned I got justice,
Mhm.
and then the Three of Swords. And so it prompts me to wonder if we didn't face some justice legal issues.
Some legal issues. Hmm, very interesting.
Even
Yeah,
though I see the potential, the drive, the ambition, all of that is there, but I'm a bit concerned with some of those obstacles.
yeah. Well, one thing is, see, this is another Libra, so he's in the
Oh,
AOC, Kamala Harris. He's a definite candidate, and then Jupiter will
yep.
be right there. I mean, its chart is perfect for running in 28. And I could see, well, let's put it this way. I would say that we would get a lot of the visibility on this guy is going to come in next year because next year he's on a Saturn return, the 30-year return of Saturn, and it will oppose his sun. And if you have problems if you have something in your closet, I mean, that's when kind of like how I said earlier,
Ah,
the hazing thing, it's the
yes,
background, then it comes in the foreground. So it could show up then for sure. And so those things can be really damaging depending on what they are. So this
yeah,
is one case of a person that 2026 will tell me a lot, even though he'll
right.
still. Now, part of it that could be that in his last year, it may not be going as well for California, and he could be having problems that way as well. That's enough from the Saturn, but depending on what shows up, then it'll be it'll really illuminate the situation.
Yep,
I would say.
yep.
Yes.
And even feel it like I feel like some struggles, and I also feel that because he's a bit more in the spotlight, that he will get under attack sooner rather than later from the other side. And you know how they do, they find stuff, I mean, so I have a bit of a question mark, not from his abilities or the times that are coming for him to show as a leader, but I feel like there will be some possible obstacles, and yeah, it feel more next year.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, that would be uh, so far. I would say the AOC, Newsom, and Kamala for now are the three that I would say that all
Yes,
three of them run. Yeah, run because if you have Jupiter in
yes, of
right,
course.
run. It's a
Yes,
possibility, right? Yeah. Now, of course, then you might discover you don't even finish the campaign, whatever. But uh, Jupiter on the sun, Jupiter on the ascendant, those are periods when if you're going to take a shot at something big, that's when you want to do it.
yep. And obviously, anyone else it could be
Oh yeah.
someone else that,
Oh,
I
for sure.
mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yes,
For sure, for sure.
yeah.
All right. Well, we'll stop
All
there.
right.
That was fun as
Yes.
always.
Thank
And
you.
I look forward to visiting your channel and as we said before we started doing this, that to continue working together because we have a lot of mutual interests and
Yes,
we hope to do more videos in the future.
for sure. And lots of positive comments. So let's continue. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone, for now. We'll say goodbye for now.
Thanks, everyone.